In this video, I'm going to talk about what is a victim mentality, and better yet, what is the opposite of a victim mentality so that you can live a more empowered and courageous life. It's pretty easy to identify when someone else is being a victim. People who are in victim mode are pretty easy to spot because they are generally complaining, they are blaming other people, and they're not taking full responsibility and ownership for themselves. Now, the challenge can be in recognizing when we are in victim mentality. So, what is it to be in victim mentality? Well, what it is when we are not at cause of our lives, when we're not the source of our experience of life, when we find ourselves projecting the way that we're living and the experience of our life, when we find ourselves projecting outwards that experience, then we are in victim mode. What I mean by projecting outwards, what I mean is saying things like, well, I don't have any money, so I can't do this thing. When we say, I don't have any money, so I can't do this thing, then we are at the victim, or we are being the victim of not having any money. And because we don't have money, we can't do the things that we want to do. A sure sign that we're in victim mode or someone's in victim mode is when we say, we can't. Right? When we say we can't, we're already implying that our hands are tied or that we are stuck because of some outside circumstance. So when we defer our life to outside circumstances, then we are being a victim. The opposite of being a victim is to be empowered, to be the source of our lives, to be at cause. And what that looks like is saying, no matter what the circumstance is, it's irrelevant because I create my life. I will be at cause in my life. And what that can often look like is having to not only accept and acknowledge difficult circumstances and own the difficult circumstances, but actually to choose those difficult circumstances and to say, this is my life. This is how it's occurred up until this moment. This is what is. And I'm going to choose it. And from that place of choice and being empowered in choosing my circumstances, then I'm going to get resourceful and make my life happen. So it's kind of abstract. So I think two stories will really help illustrate the distinction between living from circumstances in a victim mode and living from vision in an empowered mode. So maybe you remember back in the 80s, the band Def Leppard. Def Leppard had one of the best, if not the best, drummers on the planet. His name is Rick Allen, and Rick was a badass on the drums. And he got into an accident and he lost one arm. Now, most people who would be a victim of circumstances would say, well, I can't be a drummer anymore because I no longer have an arm. And drummers have arms. Now, that would be to be stuck in a belief system that has you be at the mercy of circumstances. But Rick Allen said, no way. I am a drummer. This is who I am. This is my identity, and I am committed to being a drummer. So what did he do? He shifted his reality. He basically built out a whole new drum set that allowed him to be a one-arm drummer and allowed him to really, instead of being a one-arm drummer, somebody missing an arm, right? That's coming from lack and scarcity, instead to be a three-limbed drummer. He started to modify his drummer set so that he could drum with his two legs and his arm. And to this day, he's considered one of the best drummers of all time, one arm and all. So that's an example of not living from circumstance, not being a victim, and instead choosing the vision, choosing the outcome, and being resourceful in order to make that vision happen. Another example of someone who chose to step out of victim mode and have an empowered approach to life was a man named Jean-Dominiq Bauby. He was the French editor of Elle, and one day, very sad, he woke up. He was paralyzed from his head to his toes. He was completely paralyzed except for a little bit of movement in his head and his left eye. He had something that's called locked-in syndrome. Now, his brain worked perfectly, but his body didn't. Now, he was the editor of French Elle. Obviously, this is a man who loved to write. So he was in the hospital, and he spent 10 hours a day for 4 months, blinking with his left eye with an assistant, with somebody to help him, to write a book. He wrote a book, blinking it out with his left eye for 4 hours a day. This is a true story, and he wrote this book, and the book is called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, and it's been turned into a movie as well that you can watch. But think about it, locked in, paralyzed from head to toe. Had he chosen to stay quiet, had he chosen not to write a book, nobody would have blamed him. Everybody would have said, of course, look at the circumstances that he's in. But Jean-Dominiq Bauby said, no, that's not going to be my fate. That is not how I'm going to go out. I have a vision. I have a purpose. I want to leave the world with my legacy. And he spent all his available energy, and it must have been so difficult to write this book and overcome the circumstances. So these are two examples of people who overcame circumstances in order to get empowered in their life and not be a victim. Now, notice the two things that they have in common, or many things that they have in common. One of the things was they both had a vision. They both had something that they wanted to create in their life or in the world. Rick Allen was like, no, man, I'm a drummer. I am going to keep drumming. And that was his vision, to continue to be a drummer and to share his music with the world. And Jean-Dominiq Bauby said, no, I'm a writer. I need to communicate my gift. I need to communicate this message to the world. People need to hear this. So both of them came from something bigger, and that something bigger helped pull them through a circumstance that most likely would have laid low 99% of the people on the planet. So I share this message with you because when we talk about what is victim mentality is choosing to be at the mercy of your circumstances. And the opposite of being a victim is, I call it, being a player. A player is someone who's committed to playing the game no matter what, no matter the circumstance. If you are a player and you are committed to leading a purpose-driven life and having a lifestyle-friendly business, then go ahead and download below at the link for free my Monetize Your Magic playbook. This will help you align your business with who you really are and come up with sustainable, scalable, and lifestyle-friendly ways to monetize your magic. Enjoy.